Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. Okay. I'm obsessed with dark romance, but you may be new. You might not know where to start. You don't know where to begin. There's so many tropes. There's so many kinks. There's so much smut. You don't know where to begin. It's a little confusing. I'm going to share with you 5 dark romances that I think are great for beginners. They are beginner friendly. They aren't too heavy, aren't too dark, but I think they're just right if you're just starting your journey into dark romance. So let's get into these books. This one is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is book 1 in the Brutal Birthright series. This is going to be a mafia romance. So I do think it is dark romance just because there is a little bit of violence. This is an arranged marriage book. I would consider it a great starter because it is not too heavy, not too dark, not too much going on to where you don't really understand. So the Griffins and the Gallows are sworn enemies from 2 different mafias, and they come to an agreement with an arranged marriage, and our female main character actually poisons the male main character on the day of their wedding. This book is such a good book. It is a true enemies to lovers. I loved it. It is a great beginner because it is not too heavy. I think it is a great beginner. This book is the first in the series and that kicks off. I jumped straight into book 2. After reading this one, I fell in love with them. I binged read the whole series. I definitely recommend this series. It is so good. And what I love about Sophie Lark's books is that they include pictures and drawings. So I am obsessed. So this is our main character on her wedding day, and she actually finds out that he is allergic to strawberries and poisons him. 10 out of 10 recommend. Nero by S.J Tilly is book 1 in the Alliance series. This again is a dark mafia romance, and I would highly recommend to you if you're just starting. There is a little bit more spice and smut than in Brutal Prince, but this book isn't too heavy, too dark. The mafia kind of mob world isn't too complicated to the point where you're kind of confused. So this book is about Nero. He is the head of the mafia, and he actually slides into our female's main character's living room while he's running away from the cops, and that's how they meet. He becomes obsessed to the point where he ends up stealing her body wash, and he takes it with him. He of course leaves a $100 bill to replace it, but he just becomes so obsessed with her that he wants to smell her, he wants to be around her all the time. He ends up stalking her. That's all I'm gonna say. It is such a good book. I love Nero. He was all about her once he met her. It's such a good intro into dark romance. Gothikana by Runyx is honestly one of my favorite books. This is gonna be your dark academia vibes type of book. It's not necessarily a mafia book. It is giving very much professor and student vibes. This is about Corvina. She ends up getting an acceptance letter to a university that she's never heard of before. She ends up accepting because she says, you know what, why not, let me give it a shot. When she gets there, she finds out that people have been missing for centuries at this university. This is kind of like your mystery, secret, spooky type of romance, and she tries to stay away from her part-time professor. So this very much reminded me of like the Wednesday Netflix TV show. It is such a good book. There is mystery, there is spooky vibes, dark academia. I loved reading this with like a dark academia playlist on YouTube. So good, puts you in the mood. Definitely giving fall, spooky, Wednesday Adam vibes. 10 out of 10 recommend this book for a beginner. Hawke by Jescie is a roommate romance with a little bit of dark themes, which is why I think it's a great beginner book. This is about Hawke. He recently came out of prison and he goes to live with Nicole and her boyfriend as roommates. Things get a little blurry, lines get crossed, and Nicole may or may not end up falling for Hawke. This book is so good. The storyline, the character development. Jescie has become one of my auto-read authors this past year, and I am here for it. The last book that I would recommend to a beginner is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is going to be an age gap romance. A little bit of taboos. Our girl Jordan is a hardworking college girl. She has a boyfriend who ain't shit. One night after working, she decides to go watch a movie. She ends up sitting next to this older gentleman, and they just hit it off. They start talking, and she later finds out that this older gentleman that she thought was hot and hit it off with him is her boyfriend's dad. This book is a boyfriend's dad romance. It is an age gap romance. This was one of the first books that I read that I was like, oh, this is questionable and I like it. This is kind of what got me into dark romance and wanting me to read more Penelope Douglas and darker after that. So I think this is a great starting point. If you don't know if you want to read dark romance, it is a little bit taboo because it is the ex-boyfriend's father and there's an age gap. It is so good. You're gonna love it. Daddy Pike is all I'm gonna say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It is the 5 dark romance books I would recommend to you as a beginner. Let me know if you like dark romance. If you don't like dark romance, what book would you recommend to someone who is just starting to read dark romance?